there's like this crazy heightening and like protection thing going on too.
This is Angel Maleficus, and I'm here with some heavyweight espers, and I'm actually gonna honestly I'm kind of nervous about doing this, but I'm really excited because I feel like a lot of you guys are going to be really interested in this. I've gotten requests to do more another conversation with Serial Kravitz, and but this is going to be cool because we're going to be talking about parapsychology and ESP. And so let me introduce everyone. So this is to my this way is Charles. And would you like to introduce yourself and talk to you about your channel for a bit?
Yeah. So I have a channel called Hermetic Disclosure, and I'm pretty much exposing kind of like religious fundamentalism, and I'm kind of trying to make a bridge between between hermeticism and atheism, and hermeticism and kind of Christianity, or kind of like more so the right hand path, because it's not much different. So like my channel is dedicated to showing the atheists that we are like scientifically valid and that we hold science to like a high degree, and we can separate theories from actual facts and try to show like the religious fundamentalists that spirituality kind of gives incentive for good morals too.
That's awesome. And then to my the woman with blonde hair over here, this is Deete. And Deete, would you like to talk about yourself and what you do for a bit?
Yeah, so I have a YouTube channel also, just with my name, Deete, and basically came out of Mormonism and started a channel called Reincarnated Mormon, and then I started doing channeling and things like that. So I offer services now to channel individuals, and that's what I do.
Awesome. And then the motherly woman to my left, this is Shay. And Shay, would you like to talk about what you do and introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah. Shay, I have a YouTube channel called Shailyn of the Watchtower, and I am a occultist and a Reiki practitioner, and definitely an ESPer, which I've just been pretty much trying to figure everything out since I've been dealing with this stuff since I was a little kid. And I also make these things called orgonite, which are energy transmitters that filter energy out.
That's really cool. I need to get some orgonite. I've been really looking into that. And so then the last person on this, what I'm calling a roundtable discussion, it's basically the roundtable discussion with a bunch of espers or ESPers. I always said espers, but he doesn't have a camera yet, but we'll get him next time. Don't worry. His name is Kevin. And would you like to introduce yourself and talk to about who you are and what your channel's about?
Sure, yeah. So my name is, my YouTube name is MagnumGnosis, and that I'm a ex-Christian trying to, find truth wherever I could. I had, lots of stresses and stuff in my life that actually has like fractured my into personalities of sorts. And now I'm having, spirit. Just I don't know. It's something like along the lines of being a shaman of some sort, and having entities come in and be just an open channel. And that's been a recently new thing of mine. But my channel is usually focused on the logical aspects. That's can't speak right now.
Yeah, it's
the logical.
Usually
aspects.
what I call the divine masculine, correct?
Right. Yeah. I'm more into the empirical stuff. I was an atheist until Angel, turned me to a meta-gnostic, but I still see that that skepticism is still a high trait. And so what I do is that I take my channel and I make it into a sort of nexus of ideas of some sort. So it has a whole bunch of philosophies on it. It even has a crash course in formal logic that people can go to if they don't really have the tools to create good arguments. And also my channel is to to raise awareness of this little known disorder called PNES, or conversion disorder, because I have it, and I wanted to reach out and gain, like I said, gain a little bit more awareness of this severely underdiagnosed disorder. So that's pretty much me.
Awesome. So as you can see, we have this really cool collection of occultists, channels, and researchers, and everyone. So what I wanted to do is sort of open up the roundtable discussion, the dialogue, with a question. And the question that's been on my mind, and pardon me if this is phrased in kind of a weird way, I just thought of it like literally like an hour ago. But it's been on my mind, like the grain concept of it. And that is like, why is it so hard for the mainstream public to accept the reality of ESP and telekinesis? And that could go many ways, but maybe does anyone have any ideas on that? Want to sort of like chime in about what they think the reason of that is?
Yeah, man. I think that there's like just basically a big false dichotomy, or a bunch of false dichotomies in like the spiritual community. So like there's a lot of fear-based consciousness, and people just, and it's demonized in media, it's demonized through like mainstream religions, and it's kind of just like made fun of by atheists. So people already have like a negative outlook on it before they even like really attempt it or really like go into it themselves. And like there's kind of a legit spiritual war, so to speak. So you've got like the atheists who are like basically giving us straw man arguments against like the Abrahamic God, or against like, specific versions of deities. And you have like the Christians like pointing fingers, and like it's kind of like the Dark Ages still, whereas like people like us would used to get burned, but now we just get like shamed really hard.
Yeah. Basically.
I totally agree with that.
Deete, what were you saying?
Well, I was going to say, like in my community, being around, all my family's Mormon still, and being around that community, they seem to want to take some things in, and other things they just can't see around it, whether that's through, their programming or whatever. Like, for example, I can say, like, my grandma came to visit me. She's passed away, and I got a visit from her. And they're okay with that. They're okay with having an experience where if you've had death of your loved one and you say, I've had an experience where I knew she was okay. But if you say, I had an experience where your loved one came to me or your grandma came to me, that's too much. So they kind of have a little bit where it makes sense to them, but then in another sense, it's like too much. And you're like, well, if I can tap into my grandma, why couldn't I tap into your grandma? It's all this, it's the same consciousness as far as energy goes. And, yeah, so it's interesting. It's interesting to see that they want to see some of that, but then another sense of them blocks it off.
Interesting. I think that might be because spirituality, or whatever you want to call it, is kind of like the wild, wild west in a way. Like if you like walk, like if you were metaphorically like, I'm just going to go take a stroll in the astral plane, like you might see like, this beautiful nymph being like, yo, what's good, dude? I'm hella beautiful. But then you might turn to second, and like some weird repressed like memory turns into like a poltergeist or a demon, and it could eat you. I mean, it wouldn't eat your physical body, but it might take a chunk out of your emotional body. And like that's I guess dangerous, like how the Wild West is. And so it's kind of scary if you don't really have the sight. Anyone else have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think so. I think they're really caught up. Atheism has really turned into a sort of cult of materialism, and that because they don't have, they don't try to do tests or anything like that the whole method is to potentially falsify your claim, right? And so, but the thing with the occultists, and that's what they don't know about, is that it reciprocates. It goes from having evidence to prove something to having faith in something to get evidence. And so this whole thing about getting results is you have to have a certain amount of belief that goes into it. And so this makes it really hard for the atheist, and really hard for it was really hard for something like me to accept, because I've always had that sort of materialistic sense of that before we had our talk. So.
By the way, if you haven't seen that debate, I actually did a debate with Kevin, and it's on my channel. So I'll link that into the description, as well as everybody else's YouTube channel. I'll make sure is into the description too, because you should all check out these guys individually. Shay, did you want to add anything to that?
No, it pretty much got it. That, and I have a screaming baby, but
that's okay.
You guys pretty much covered it.
So what I think, and I think this could be like the most tinfoil hat theory out there, but I feel like there is conscious effort, like there's a conspiracy in a way to cover. I'm not saying it's like reptilians or aliens or whatever, but like it almost feels like there is some sort of force or conspiracy blinding people. And in some ways, I almost feel like atheism is a react to very toxic spirituality, like really like fundamentalist Abrahamism. But like, I feel like Nikola Tesla was really onto something with free energy, and that's basically like what the psychic stuff is. And if you think about it, what was electricity before electricity was lightning? Someone from like I say before in my other videos, Sansa Stark from Game of Thrones, like if you try to tell her about the radio or the internet, she would be like, huh, what are you talking about? But if you told her like, look, I have a portal to the astral plane where you can talk to the god of the Akashic records, and she'd be like, oh, that kind of makes sense. I feel like Nikola Tesla was on this in the 1800s, and we're still not there yet. So I feel like there's been some conspiracy. Kevin, I don't know how much you know or care about ufology, but like I feel like that's a big part of ESP. Maybe I should like ask that. Like how much do you think? Does any of you think that I'm onto something, that there is a conspiracy of some kind to hide ESP because it's related to UFOs and free energy, or is that just disinformation, like Gaia TV bullshit?
I think that it's not bullshit, but I think it's the old world order trying to continue to have a grasp on this new thing that is being born, which is the age of rationality, the age of not having to take our parents at their word, for something that we can go and look up the evidence. And then there's this whole thing with the ESP and all that people are having to we're coming to a point where we have to either I just lost my train of thought, but I apologize. Can you did you intuit what I was going to say?
Yeah. I feel like I get what you're saying. It's just that I really feel like my intuition, and I'm just learning how to build my intuition, is telling me strongly that there's like that this stuff, all this Esper shit is like is real, and it's just like what lightning was before someone figured out how to be electricity, or it's just like how the radio was before, radio waves existed before there was the radio station. You know what I'm saying? And I guess if you want to scientify it, like Dewey Larson has this really cool theory called reciprocal systems theory, and he just calls the astral plane the cosmic sector, and apparently it's like an energy, and if you have crystals that are arranged in a weird way and you're Nikola Tesla, you could figure out how to get it over unity. I'm not really smart enough to explain it, but like I buy into it because I've seen telekinesis. I've seen people turn lights on and off with their brains, or I guess it's not their brains. It's like their soul or something. I don't know how magic works. I just know it does.
Yeah, when we figure out how to like objectively talk about like it working, like, oh, it works like that, then it'll become science. Like, I see what you mean.
Yeah, it's basically, I feel like the ideal scenario it would be like how music theory is. Because I'm a musician, I have a background in music theory, and the thing is people don't realize how magical music is and how high vibrating of communication it is, because there are literally like classes you can take on how to scare someone with tones, and like if you want to make horror movie music, that's what you do, and people don't like flip out or freak out. It's like, damn, that music made me feel sad. It's like, oh wow, this music changed my life, I can't believe it. What are you talking about? That's impossible. We no one does that because it's just so, you see what I'm trying to say? But it's like if you tell them like, hey man, I can move this little side wheel with my mind, with my psychic power, they're like, bullshit. And then you show them, they're like, bullshit. And then you prove it to them and they're like, nah. And so I feel like if it's not a conspiracy, there's this thing in us called paranormal acceptance anxiety. And I want to ask, if has anyone ever experienced the phenomenon called paranormal acceptance anxiety or seen it? And let me explain what that means. It's like when a muggle is confronted with a reality of the paranormal, they kind of freak out and don't know what to do and get stifled. Has anyone seen that or experienced that?
I feel like I experience that all the time, especially like when I was first really getting into channeling. I had beings that appeared to me where I felt like almost like I could touch them. Like my filters were completely blown, especially if I had woken up. And then I would go back to sleep and then, wake up in the next morning and be like, no, that doesn't, like I just would try to blow it off. So I feel like I did that as a protective mechanism because it was so far beyond what my perspective at the time could understand, because I was waking up to beings that didn't look like me, that were like doing energy work on me that I didn't even fully understand. So I used that. And my husband, like I've been wanting him to wake up so badly, and he's just not there a lot. And so spirit will do some things to like get his attention, and it'll happen. And I'll be like, you know why that happened, right? And like, for example, we were like sitting in bed or whatever, and I said, if I die before you, I'm gonna flip on the TV just to like haunt you, like as a joke. And he's like, okay, whatever. And we turned off the TV and it kept flipping on. We turned it off and it would flip back on again. And I was like, you know what that is? That's like spirit trying to say like there's people around or whatever, there's spirit around you. And he's just like, no, there's a wire that's messed up back here. So I think we do that because we don't know how to make sense of it. We're doing it to like protect ourselves, and deep inside though, we know that there's something to it, and maybe we're just not ready at that exact moment.
I agree with that.
Interesting. Anyone else want to comment on if they have experienced paranormal acceptance anxiety or seen it in real life?
I think
when I first started seeing beings, when I started first meditating, I legitimately thought I was going batshit crazy for like fucking months. Like I was trying to come up with everything in the book of why I was seeing these things and why they just kept appearing. And it took a long time to have that acceptance. But I think that happens a lot with people because it's just drilled in their mind all the time that if you think that way or see something like that, you have a serious mental disorder. And it's nuts now to look back at that and be like, holy shit, dude, like the fucking veil gate just got fucking drop kicked and I'm sitting there questioning it. Like, yeah.
Wow.
And then you want it to happen again, and then it doesn't. You're like, wait, I'm not scared this time. Like,
because you're all expecting it and shit. And
it doesn't happen.
Nice. Kevin, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. The first time, like, this just happened right after our debate, that first it was, you were telling me that in order for you to, for me to continue, it was a good idea to come to terms that I'm actually God. And that was something that was really weird. And at one point in the night after our debate, I just started forming this or affirming this thing in my mind. I am God, and then the what was my conversion, symptoms started to turn into some sort of like demon, and you saw that, in Skype chat or something, right? But then, as I continued to see that, I'm like, am I going crazy? Is this the end, for me? They, my brain started to communicate with one another, and really tried to, and really trying to understand. And I'm saying my brain, but it might be, elemental spirits or something that I could have been. Yeah, so I did get the paranormal anxiety, especially when you were trying to do that thing with me with the whole what's in your hand kind of thing.
Oh, I was gonna try to get you to remote view, because I find that remote viewing, is like a really quick way to, like, if you know the protocols, because what you do is, what I was gonna try to do is like get you to hold something in your hand and then guess it, or like I would hold something in my hand and have you guess it, because that's a really cool thing that happens. But you didn't want to do it because you probably knew something would happen. And then I was going to try to get you to talk to my spirit guide friend, who was like floating around in my room, but like that was a little too weird for you at the time.
Right. Yeah. I don't think it would be that bad, this time or another. Now that, I've, my mom and dad say that I have schizophrenia now, and I didn't think that I would ever have that before, but, and I don't think that it still is, my spirit guides say that I'm not crazy and that I'm just channeling spirits. There's nothing wrong with the brain or anything. So, I had to really come up to that and say, do I really believe that I have, that my thoughts are not my own, and that, it is spirits trying to talk to me in some way. And once you gave me that, and I smoked a little weed afterwards, the doors, just the veil came open, and I started receiving my first transmission of whatever these spirits were trying to say to me, and to this day that contact is still pretty strong. So I have no excuse not to believe anymore about paranormal experience.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty insane, dude. Like I feel like obviously paranormal anxiety is real, because like I've experienced a lot of the same things, and I feel like as a cultist we're like, people say Christians are oppressed, but like, we're kind of like attacked from both sides. You'll have like the secular people telling us that we have like disorders and stuff, and like to a degree it's kind of like, well,
I would say that like what's appropriate way to phrase it is, in the society built by the materialistic secular people, people that have really natural abilities with no education develop mental disorders because it's harder to function in the society. Like I would feel like I'm disabled in this society. Like I feel like all occultists are marginalized. Whether like they're more marginalized than like women or black people or Jews, like I don't know. Like I'm not God, even though I am, but like this my ego doesn't know. Doesn't have the answer to that. So like I feel like that's a really good point. We're kind of attacked on both sides. And another thing I kind of want to point out, or at least this is just my thoughts, that there is this oppression. Like I feel like, maybe not oppression. So you know how there's like the feminist movement. Like I feel like they've identified something that's happening to women, but it's not women. I feel like there is this sort of almost attack on femininity and motherhood, specifically like feminine energetic values. And when I say feminine energetic values, I'm not specifically talking about women in general. I'm talking about the sort of yin energy, the more intuitive, emotional science. If you notice, like the wage gap I think exists because a lot of women tend to have feminine heart chakra energy and like to go towards that stuff, but it doesn't pay as well because it's not exalted like more masculine, Martian-y, science-y stuff. And I feel like because the Earth is basically, we can call her Sophia, she's a feminine planet. And if you just look at animals, they're much more round and feminine-y. I don't even know that's a word. And it's like we're just so enamored with like the masculine technology because it really is amazing. Like hard lines and shapes and systems, like if it wasn't for that, we couldn't do what we're doing right now. And because I don't know how this happened, but whatever reason, like there's just no love or appreciation for like the more feminine science. And you don't see, like, the only people that do this usually are girls. Like I don't see many guys trying to get massages or get Reiki healings or like buy crystals unless they're like the hippies. And the hippies, no one likes the hippies. Like, I mean, I like hippies, but like society wise, they're kind of shit on. So those are kind of my thoughts. And I wonder what everyone else thought of that.
I say that's a lot to take in.
Yeah, I definitely think like females, like, I mean, we Skyped one time and we talked about how like females were kind of named after feminine energy and like males were kind of like named after masculine energy. Like the energy's there and then like we came. So I do feel like we're kind of a reflection of that energy, like our biological bodies, and like it's not like completely like what determines it, but it's like in the mix. So I feel like females just are like more inclined to just be like emotionally badasses and like, like, and so, I'm not saying guys can't, but I'm definitely saying like, I do feel like females are like more inclined.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's why it's attacked so much by like, that's why like people burned witches back in the day. I mean, it was mostly females.
Yeah. And I would add, like, I said this off air too, but I want to say it again. I have this theory, or I guess it's a hypothesis, but I like saying theory better. I have this theory that basically, you know how guys, like Ronda, the boxer woman, she probably can kick my ass, but like the best boxer in the world probably could knock her out. And I feel that's like probably like physical dense biology that like masculine energy has kind of like figured out. And my theory is that, women might be naturally just like have a really strong emotional body, which in my experience is basically what links you to the astral plane or like the site, whatever label you want to give the woo-woo space. And cause I feel like some of like the best mediums are always like women, and it seems like the spiritual community is like dominated by women in the same way like the STEM field is dominated by men. So in a weird way, there's almost like I don't know how I got to this point, but like if you're a male occultist, you're super marginalized because usually the guys that get into this stuff like are either like really like fluffy and like gay because like they're tapped into the fucking spirit, or they're like edgelords like me, and they're just too scary and unrelatable. Does anybody resonate with what I just said?
I know what you're saying, and I wonder if some of that also has to do with how the female brain works versus the male, because I do know that like being in a physical body, the female can process things differently. And then, like you said, maybe that makes it a little bit easier because they incorporate that with their emotions to tap into the spiritual realm. And maybe it's more difficult for males to do it in the same way. I don't know. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but there could be a difference in like like the physiology of the body, like the energy in the body that comes together. That men have their own energy when tapping into spirit that is different than the female. Maybe it's not super, super psychic, but maybe it has a more logical and grounding effect, because a lot of the ancient philosophers were very psychic, but they brought a lot of logic and science that really helps us incorporate the spirituality into our life.
Absolutely. I'll agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. I
mean, to a certain degree, the field of logic is also an occult science itself, because I mean, it's hidden from people at the moment. If you really think about it, if we taught this in school of the what I call the unadulterated masculine instead of the toxic masculinity, because that's what I believe that we have today. If we actually flip the coin onto the light side of it, I think that people would have more freedom, more control over their government, and everything like that. So even though that we kind of pale in comparison to women in the psychic field, our minds are mostly work by point A to point B kind of thing, and I think that it has its place in society, definitely.
Absolutely. What I think would be really cool is I want to build a bridge to the skeptic community, and that's the sort of idea behind this whole sort of roundtable discussion. And actually, in about 9 minutes, I'm going to debate an atheist live, and the idea, just like I did him, but I've got round 2, and so the whole idea is to sort of I'm trying to build a bridge, and then at the same time build a community that maybe is more inviting to more logical personality type or masculine personality types, because there are some women that are really logical, like Lauren Southerns or like people like that are literally masculine, that are just logic. So just people that have that mindset to be more open-minded. And so this idea that me and Kevin had was we were going to create this this sort of website or a place called like the Occult Technology Peer Review Journal, where we could basically, how the science people have their peer review journal, well, we're going to be scientists with our own. And the idea behind that would be to sort of just kind of push an ESP disclosure in a way, because that way I'd feel much safer and better about doing, eventually I want this to lead into free energy exploration, but I don't want to get killed by George Soros.
Yeah, dude, that's a sick idea. I think we need a peer review journal. I think people need to be hip to this shit. And I kind of struggled between all right, are people ready for this, or people even spiritually mature for this? But honestly think that we can't wait for people to get ready. I think we are the people to kind of do it ourselves, and we can obviously just have a scientific community of our own, or become a branch of the scientific community and show people that human development and spirituality go hand in hand.
Yeah, I want it to be in how it is in Final Fantasy, or where it's they have the royal court, and they have the magicians or whatever. If they had just Hogwarts and all these cool mystery schools, but there was no conspiracy and no Christian propaganda telling us that we're sacrificing babies or whatever it is. We just want our mystery schools open and friendly. But that's super futuristic planning. But that's the whole idea with these roundtable discussions. And I'm gonna have to wrap this up pretty soon. But is there anyone that wants to sort of say any sort of parting thoughts, or what they think of this, or if they'd be down to do another roundtable discussion in this format?
I'd be down.
Me too.
Me too.
Same.
I want to thank you all for joining, and people for watching. And this is the first time I've ever done anything like this. So if it seems kind of amateurish, be nice, because the next one's gonna be even better. If you like this kind of content, give it a thumbs up. Say stuff in the comments, and there we go. Peace.
We treasure the fact that we had no clue where life would take us.